Let me say that one more time. It's all a part of the purpose, but you can't get there if you don't start here. Right here, right now, in the now. Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of the Kairika Rashid Show, and I'm so glad that you decided to come back for more. So what's up? First, get into this hair. Just get into it. You know what I'm saying? Like, get into it. That's what's up, but like not really, not too much. But what's up is, I think I told you I listen to a bunch of podcasts all the time. And I just feel like, I listen to like one a day, but now I feel like my intake in general, like weekly, is like greatly increased. I feel like when I'm being more productive and more focused on my task and things that I want to do with my life, that I'm listening to podcasts. Like majority of the time, I'm either listening to music or a podcast. And if I'm not, like, I'm not really on my phone, I might play a little boring game, might look at social media a little bit, but like not too much. I just feel an increase in productivity. So what I want to talk about is, I had 2 specific messages this week that focused on finding and having purpose in the now, in the present, in this moment. And the 2, one of them was a podcast, one of them was my sermon. So one, I do weekly sermons, and if y'all got some sermons you want to put me on to, put me on, because I just started the whole process of like doing like the church vibe. Like I haven't been in church physically in some time, but this summer I've been in the church. In this summer specifically, I've been like more back into the church vibe. So I do weekly online sermons. And as you know, like I said multiple times, podcasts. So these 2 specific messages, I feel like coincided really well. And they both, and mind you, they totally different. We got one over here and one over here. And they both spoke to me in similar ways, talking about finding purpose in the now. So what had happened is for me, I felt like I had been coming off a really like bad week. Like, when you're just not in your groove, for me, you're not in your routine. Like the whole week was off for me. So it started because I went on a trip, a little mini trip, and I went to go hang out with friends on the weekend. And we losing sleep. We having a little drink here and there. We having some vibes. They celebrate, they party hard out here. And I think it was my first time since being in Ireland, like hanging out and like drinking and that type of vibe. And as an athlete, when you got that lick in your system, it take longer to recover. And then on top of that, I'm traveling from bus, you know what I'm saying? And also I didn't have that weekend / week time to myself. I thrive when I'm by myself and I'm doing things alone. I only have a certain allotted time. Y'all, we know a certain allotted time for social activities. And I think I maxed out on my social activities, but still kept doing social activities and had only this much of alone time, that it fell into the week and it fell into my recovery. And I didn't like recover the same way. I didn't like do my to-do list all week. Like I was just off. I was off. Yeah, so I was off, and I just feel like it just fell into everything, like even into basketball. And when you a person who get to the bag and get stuff done and like to be focused and locked in, I just felt like, not that I had too much fun, but the balance wasn't there. It was too much social hour, not enough of me. You know what I'm saying? Versus it needs to be me, social hour. I can't do too much. I tapped out. And on top of that tap out, I kept going. And that was the problem. That was the problem. So I was tired. I was sluggish. I was just drained all week into the weekend. And I was like, all right, fuck all the bullshit. When we get back to the beginning of the week, it's time to get to the bag again. We're back in action. So we going into the podcast and the sermons. Like, see, because usually I got my Sundays to do my sermons. I wasn't even home long enough to just sit there and do my sermon. So I had to move my sermon to the weekday. You know what I'm saying? I had to get it done. So I'm just off. So usually when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I'm listening to is like a podcast. I wake up, I get ready, I got a podcast in my ear. I'm just like, that's how I move and that's how I maneuver. So this specific podcast was by Jay Shetty. I don't know if y'all know him or not. If you don't, I'm putting you on. And his podcast is called On Purpose. Get it? On Purpose. I'm listening to it on purpose. It's about finding your purpose, mental health, all these things. And the episode was called, let me read it. The episode was specifically 8 proven ways to get out of a creative block and find your flow. Now, I don't think I was in a creative block, but the part of like finding my flow, I was more drawn to that piece because I was just out of my flow, my vibe. So obviously throughout that, he was giving 8 different ways to, really adjust, really adapt, really help you out. And I hope that's the correct podcast. I hope it is. Because if not, then I'm directing you the wrong way. If not, I get it right. But I really feel like it is that one. But the thing that stuck out to me, I don't know if it had to do with one of the specific tasks or if it was that specific, advice. But Jay Shetty said, a lot of us are afraid to be seen starting from the bottom. Starting from the bottom, now we're here. We want to get to the now we here, but we afraid of starting with the bottom. And starting with the bottom is like, for instance, if I'm doing podcasting, it's like no views, no likes. If I'm playing basketball, it's like, oh, I'm trash, but I'm in the gym all the time. Like if I wanted to be a writer and I'm posting writing stuff, like it's like not getting the recognition or getting the monetary value, all those types of things. Like that's the bottom, that's the baseline. It's like all it is you and that dream or that passion at the beginning when there's no eyes on you, when there's no one telling you it's good, it's bad, it's this and that. It's just like baseline. And then going along with that, saying that a lot of us are afraid to be seen starting at the bottom or starting from the beginning. He says that you're never going to be able to get to that place where you have the views, where you have the money, where you have the following, where you feel like you totally found your purpose if you don't start. Like if you don't start, then you're not gonna get there at all because you didn't start. So how you gonna get there? How you gonna get to the end? How you gonna get to the glory if you just don't go ahead and start? And that was a word. I feel like he also was continuing, or like what I got from it, it's like you have to be consistent from the beginning when no one's watching. And that's similar to like integrity. It's like who you are when no one's watching or if they're around. But like, do you have integrity if those people aren't around? Like, are you going to be consistent if those people aren't around? Are you going to do it if no one's watching the video? Are you going to do it if you only got 2 likes? Like, are you going to do it because it's for you and it's, part of your journey, part of your process? Or is it just about all that other stuff? And I'm just like, you know what? he didn't have to come for me like that, but I felt like he did. Because for me, I was so scared to start this, all that. And it would be like all the years of my life, like not like middle school, elementary and all that stuff, but like more towards like later high school and like college especially. It was like so many people would say, oh, you would be good at this, oh, you should do this and that. And I've always had that like thing inside where I like always said I wanted to do public speaking, or even I would shy away from saying specifically like I want to speak in public and I want to do stuff talking to people on a stage. Like I would shy away from that, even though inside like I knew I always wanted to do it. Like I know that I always want to talk to people and share stories and, you know, all that type of vibe. I was so scared to like admit it and to like show it. I feel like in a lot of my stories, I'll take more of the reserved, shy role first because I didn't want to be seen. But in the inside, I'm like, oh my God, like I actually do want to do this. Like this is actually something I really do. Like I agree, I would be good at, and I feel like I have a passion for it, but I was so afraid to like accept it and like move it forward. So in theory, I could have had many years of this under my belt, but apparently it wasn't the timing, it wasn't God's timing for me to do that. It just took me so long to really just like, all right, fuck it, I'm gonna do it. And even in me saying, all right, fuck it, I'm gonna do it, it was scary. And I also did it in steps. So it would be like, oh, I created a page, fuck it, I'm gonna do it. And then I was inconsistent with the page. And then I would post writing here and there. And then I would do this, I would do that. And it was still scary. And then even then people were like, oh my God, like you should do speaking and da da da. Because even with like public speaking, like I took a public speaking class in college and like easy peasy, or like anything that has to do with presentations or relating or even just conversations with people, like I'm good at that. And I've always known that, but I've always shied away from it until I just said, all right, fuck it, we finna actually do it. And then when I finally decided to do it, it's like, oh, you gotta start. Like you just have to start. And it gets easier the more you continue to do it, the more you can be consistent. And it's like with this podcast, I was like, man, I can't start this shit. And I think that's really what it's being afraid of. Like I can't start it and not be consistent. Like I can't start the podcast and say I'm gonna do this and that and not do it. So I think that's a lot of the reasons why I would be like holding back, like waiting. Like, no, I can't do it because I'm probably not gonna be consistent. I'm gonna fall off. And then I just did it, and now it's like part of the routine. It's like it's part of the passion. It's giving me something to look forward to every week, despite who's watching, despite if you ain't watching, you know, that type of vibe. It's like being consistent when no one's watching, being consistent because it's what you want to do. And another word that he said in the podcast, he said, you know, a lot of podcasts start and getting to 100 is like a huge milestone. So we gonna stay tuned for that, because when I get to 100, hey, that's the goal now. Because now I'm like, oh, that's like a huge milestone. Like a lot of podcasts start, but you're not even getting to 100. So now I'm like, oh, I got to get to 100. I got to. This is only episode 6 or 7, but I got to get there. So the second word that I got this week was from my sermon. And so I don't know if y'all know about Transformation Church. Y'all probably know. It's like really popular, you know, Crazy Faith series is on there. You know, Pastor Michael Todd, like that's Transformation Church, found on YouTube. And that's how I started and found where I'm at now. So I did all the Crazy Faith. I did like a relationships goal like sermon, and it's like a series to where it goes on for weeks and weeks and weeks. So I had the Crazy Faith series is like 20 weeks or so. I think it's like 20 total weeks. And I had finished, and I finished in Ireland, and I was like, oh, so what am I gonna do now? And I was searching, and I feel like this is, or like talking on this podcast and all this stuff, I've talked about it being part of my purpose and like stepping into it. and I seen the title. It was like The Paradox of Purpose. And the sermon leader is Charles Metcalf, and he's also part of Transformation Church as well. And that's like, it's it's like 4 weeks, and I think I'm on week three. So the title of this one overall, so like it's The Paradox of Purpose. That's the main thing. And then under it, it's like special episodes. So this is like a funny title, I think. I'm gonna read it. It's The Paradox of Purpose / The Devil Made Me Do It / Was It the Devil Though? You know what I'm saying? So you get into it and you be like, oh, so what we really talking about? What we really talking about? Like, the devil made me do it as far as my purpose? Like, what's really going on? And mind you, I didn't do it on Sunday. I did it on Monday as well. So I think I got the Jay Shetty in the morning, and then like early or late afternoon, I got the sermon in as well. So yeah, Charles Metcalf, he talks about a lot of stuff, and so it's on week 3. It's like a bunch of stuff continuous from the following or the previous weeks. And he talks about how purpose is a process / there's a process in the purpose. And I'm gonna read this for you. He says, as far as the purpose being a process, that it takes time, you have to wait, and you have to prepare. And another word, he said, we want instant gratification when that can be the greatest distraction of our purpose. Meaning we want shit to pop off right now, when it ain't even meant to do all that. That ain't what God intended for you. Like, your purpose ain't supposed to be off the rip. Now, sometimes, I'm not saying it can't happen, or he wasn't saying it can't happen off the rip like that. But a lot of times, like we're saying in this podcast, or when we start something, it's like, oh, no one's gonna be watching. Oh, I'm not gonna get any views. Oh, like, who wants to hear what I have to say type vibe. When in reality, you just need to do it. You just need to do it. And like, it's part of fulfilling God's will, no matter who's watching. And it's like, matter of fact, even that, you got to be able to fulfill God's will even when no one else is watching or giving you that type of praise, because God is always going to give you the praise, and then you give it right back to him. Like, all the whole summer of me starting to like connect with the relationship of God, it's not for other people to see that, oh, I'm a faith-filled and I believe in God and I believe in Jesus. Like, it's not for me to go out and boast and do all that. To them, it's for me to like dial in on the purpose with my relationship with God and fulfilling that. And it's like, it's for me and it's for God. It's not for nobody else. So having instant gratification, like in trying to build that, that's for the folks. That ain't for you, and that ain't for him. Now, sometimes you can get that instant gratification. Sometimes it could be there, but more times than not, that ain't for you, big dog. That ain't for you, big dog. And even with God, like this talks about, like, you got to be able to do the work to see results. Like, you could pray about it, you could do all that, but you can't just sit, and you can't just like, hope and wait for things to come to you or wait for things to happen. You got to do the work, because without the work, ain't nothing finna pop. Ain't nothing finna pop. And just wait till I start getting real active. Like, I'm getting better with the word, but I'm trying to be like the folks, you know how they come off the rip, where they be like, yeah, scripture, Colossians 21:17 says, da-da-da-da. I want to be like that. Now, some of them, I got a couple in my head that I could go off the dome, but I ain't got too much. When you get like that, I'm like, I'm really in my Bible bag. I'm in the word. What is you in? Yeah, so anyways, it talks about like wanting that instant gratification in the purpose, when in reality, right now is the preparation for that purpose. And in that preparation for that purpose, we have to find the purpose in starting, the purpose in discipline, the purpose in, I guess that's the same, being consistent, and the purpose in the wait. So finding the purpose in the now. And the now is that wait. The now is that discipline to keep going. The now is the starting if you haven't started before. So it's like finding purpose in the right now, even if you don't have that instant gratification, even if you don't have what you dream of, or like that end goal just happening yet. You gotta find purpose. So you seeing how both of my messages is coinciding. Like, we got my paradox of purpose, and then we got Jay Shetty over here, and they just really meshed really well. And one is just the podcast is just in the ear, and then I get the visual, and it's like I'm like, oh man, like that really like helped me, especially coming off what I felt like was a really sluggish week. I'm like, oh, well, there's purpose in that moment. There's purpose in this. There's purpose to keep going. And even in moments where I'm like, sometimes I go back and I check and I'm like, oh, this many people watched it, or how come this many people watched this one, or this many people watched this one, or it's like that comparison game. And it's like, well, in reality, that don't matter. None of that matters because I started. And now that I've started and started to continue, like we continuing, we're moving forward. We're continuing, we're finding purpose in that wait until whatever's supposed to happen is happening. We're finding purpose in the discipline of coming back here every week, writing down what I'm going to talk about, really being intentional about the behind the scenes before I give it out to you. Like, we're finding purpose in that. And like, I started. Now that's amen to that, thank God. But we talking about I didn't win 7 weeks being consistent. Now, sometimes I'll be like, oh man, I ain't gonna cap to you. Sometimes I'll be like, oh, I don't know if I could do this week, but then I remember I'm like, oh no, there's purpose in that. You gotta keep going. You gotta keep being disciplined. There's purpose in that work. Like, God wants you to work. You gotta work behind the scenes to get to the glory and to get to all the things that He promised you. You can't just sit. You can't just sit on it. I can't just sit on all the stuff that God has put inside of me, or you can't just sit on all that stuff that God put inside of you, because it's dope and it's supposed to be out there. It's supposed to be given. It's supposed to be shared. So you got to find purpose in it at the beginning, off rip. Find purpose in the beginning, man. And that's that on that. So now what? That was a word, wasn't it? Hallelujah. That was a word. So now what? So yeah, now that we went through all that, coming back around, we know that starting can be scary, can be fearful, but there's purpose in it. And I just want to commend the people that's able to start stuff and go through with stuff, not just start and let it drop, but start and follow through with no fear. With no fear. That, salute to you, because I was scary. I tell people from time to time I'm scary. But once I find my footing, we're gonna get it. Now, what I think that it was only God's timing for those 2 messages to mesh so well, and especially coming off of a tough week for me. I think it just gave me that boost, like, okay, you good, bro. Like, you good. But also it's like, it's okay to have, you gonna be off sometimes. Like, it's gonna happen. You need a boost here and there. But like, as long as you get back up, like what Cardi say, get knocked down 9 times, but I get up 10 type vibe. You know what I'm saying? But I get up 10 as long as you get back up. As long as you get back up and keep going. And I feel like I just had to like talk about it, because I'm like, that can only be God during these specific times. It's just serving God's timing. It's like, this, and then I'm gonna drop that little gem right there. You feel me? It's only God. Who else? Only him. And then honestly, to cap it off, it's like, the message is just that it's all a part of the purpose, but you can't get there if you don't start here. Let me say that one more time. It's all a part of the purpose, but you can't get there if you don't start here. Right here, right now, in the now. You got to do it. You got to do it. You got to get in the bag. And when you start it, you got to continue. You got to continue. So now we coming back to the final segment. So I got a question. And I'm going to read these questions off to you. Question number 1. What's your favorite podcast and favorite sermons? Now for my Jesus folk out there, put me on some good sermons. Because once I finish this, I do like the series and like knowing. But if y'all got a word for me, drop it in the comments. Drop it in the DM. Tell me about it because I want to hear the word. And I've been growing with the Lord. And I've been reaching out to my friends, and my friends been putting me on some good stuff. Just show me about it. Podcast too. I'm a podcast junkie. That's all I really listen to. So put me on. I've already been put on, but hey, I can't get enough. Question number 2. What's stopping you from starting now? For me, I was scared. Y'all. I was so scared. But is you scared? Or is you ready to nuck if you buck? Or what, is you not motivated? Like, what was stopping you from starting now? And whatever that is. Just let me know. Tell me what's stopping you from starting. And then we can figure it out. Question 3. How you bounce back from having like a bad week or a bad day? Because that's how all this came about. I just came from a bad week. In the grand scheme of things, it was a good, I'm not saying I didn't have a good time hanging out, being with folks, being with friends, but I can only take a certain amount. And I know that. But because I knew that and didn't continue to pursue that, it led to a bad week. So how you bounce back? Is it podcasts? Is it music? Is it talking to the folks? Is it just, you just need to lay down and reset? Is it working out? Let me know. Because, is it God? Amen. Because here's the thing. I had a whole bad week, but I also feel like if I'm taking some accountability, I fell into it. You know what I'm saying? It could have just been a bad day or two, but I continued and it just became a bad week. I didn't lift myself out of it. I feel like maybe I could have went to God more. How you really, go to my people more. How you really get out of that. How you get out of it. How you shake yourself and say, hey, stand up. Stand up, man. Stand up. Stand on business. If you about that action, let's get to it. Get up. So yeah, them are the questions I have. I want to hear what y'all got to say. So hit me in the DM. Hit me in the comments. Y'all better tell me. Because I wants to know. At KHIARICARASHEED on the platform, y'all. Hit me up. But I had a good time. I hope y'all did too. This is the end of another episode of the Kairika Rashid Show, and I'm so glad that you decided to come back for more. Get it.